phone. Pete and I have been friends. We met for the first time, Pete, in Bold in Cleveland, Ohio. I want to say it was about 2015.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's either 15 or 16. When you take Bold a bunch of times and you teach it all the time, they all run together, don't they?
Yeah. How many times have you taken Bold?
Well, I've just signed up for Bold Pivot, so this will be number 13 for me.
Wow. Wow. Now that just tells me that you're a student of the game. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your journey as agent, mega agent, MAPS coach, and building a team. Go through your whole journey. Tell everybody, introduce yourself. Because I can't do you justice as good as you can do yourself, because you are just an amazing individual.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I don't know if if my wife would say amazing, but I appreciate hearing that from you. And you know, everybody down in Orlando, all you guys have my prayers too. And we know some people up here that have been sick with the virus, and, you know, just hang in there. God's got this one, and this too shall pass. But anyways, so I have a team. I've been licensed as a real estate agent now since 2001. And I kind of went through a time frame where I just bought and sold real estate. I bought homes, I renovated them, and I sold them, and did that at a pretty high level. I flipped over 100 homes and owned investment property in Florida and different parts of the country, and had a property management and a construction company. And then 2006, 2007, 2008 rolled around, and I kind of realized that there was a little shift coming in the economy, and probably a little bit too late, and lost some of my businesses, and had to decide, you know, what do I do now? And it was kind of a aha moment or an epiphany where, you know, God just grabbed me and said, hey, you know, you've been serving yourself, going after profits. Now I want you to serve people. So I decided I would go into real estate full time in 2008. Pretty good year for real estate. You remember that year, Rich?
Oh, I remember.
So anyways, I joined a small local brokerage because I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. And then at the end of the year, I got introduced to Keller Williams by a good friend of mine up here in Cleveland, Ohio. Actually, I'm in a suburb of Cleveland called Rocky River. And I went in and I said, I'm happy. And, you know, she said, all right, let me just tell you about the opportunity. She started talking about culture and, you know, everything else. And I said, hey, can I come back tomorrow? I was just blown away by what Keller Williams had to offer from a culture standpoint, and, you know, tools and training and technology and everything else. So it's been a good 11-year run. I have been blessed to be on the ALC 6 times in different market centers. I was a team leader for a market center in 2013, just for 1 year, which was a great assignment. It really helped me with people skills and leadership and building my team now. And then just more recently in the last, really, Rich, in 2015 is really when I decided to get going again.
Sure.
And started building my team again. And, you know, I was a team leader in 13, and then at the beginning of 14, I was a solo agent. So although I have all this experience, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then in 2015, in January, I'm sitting in Bold, and the instructor looked at me and said, you're 100% responsible. And I kind of thought about that, and I said, you know what? He is right. I am 100% responsible, and I can do this thing. I had brought 2 agents from my market center to Bold. Hey, you need to do Bold. You need to do this. And I thought, you know what? I need to sign up, because I'm not signed up. And then, to be transparent, I realized, you know what? I don't have $799 in the bank. This is just, you know, 5 years ago now. So I borrowed it from a business partner of mine, signed up, took it 4 times in 2015, took it 4 times in 2017. And my business just started to just really take off, because I was determined, you know, I could do this thing.
Sure. So what did your business look like last year? How big did you get? Where are you at in units?
Well, as far as team members, so I have my own mega agent office. I have 7 agents on the team. I have an operations manager, a listing manager, and an ISA. So there's 10 of us right now. Last year we did 122 units, which was about 20 million. in sales volume and about 600,000 in gross commission.
Nice, nice. So obviously you've been growing. What was that experience like for you to grow a team, Pete? Because it's an unnatural behavior when we grow a team, and we know that we need leverage, and we're taught at Keller Williams at a high level. We're just not sure of how to do that. So what was that experience like for you?
Well, I've been an interest journey. I think everybody's different in business. Some people can be a solo agent, sell 3 properties a month, have a nice business. I think it all depends on your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And I decided early on I wanted to build up leaders, create opportunities. In 2015, just being solo again, and I had a gal that I knew from church who was kind of looking for an opportunity. I just hired a part-time administrator. I had been a team leader in a market center, so I understood kind of how to build teams. But I was really just like, all right, now I'm so busy. First of all, I don't want to do the paperwork because, like most salespeople, I'm not good at it. Second of all, I started to get really busy because I was taking bold, and now I'm working with, I had 10 or 12 listings and 10 or 12 buyers. My hair was on fire, so to speak. And I'm like, I can't do this. I need a solid administrator. So I hired Elizabeth, who's still my operations manager 5 years later. And I just was like, wow, this is great. And then I realized, you know what? I can't keep up with the buyer and seller leads. And you're supposed to bring on a second person, which I did. I did bring on, I had a marketing person, but she had been with me prior. So now I had 2 administrators, and I added the buyer's agent, and it just really freed me up to do, lead generation and meet with, I still met with buyers occasionally. However, he ran most of them, and I got to meet with just sellers.
So it sounds to me that you pretty much followed the model in the MREA book. You hired the admin, and then you wind up, I'm assuming, pouring into that woman, Elizabeth, because you grew her into your ops manager, right?
Yeah. So I just got lucky. Everybody says, hey, speak to 100 people, do a KPA and all that. We've done that. We followed the model for hiring. However, with Elizabeth, she just happened to be somebody I go to church with, and she was not a single mom, a young mom, and she was looking for an opportunity, and we connected. Same values though, and brought her on 20 hours a week. That turned into 30 hours a week. Then it was full time, and then just brought her along. We hired a MAPS coach for her as an administrator. She was coached by Brinley Tucker for a while.
Sure.
Who's awesome. You guys know her. She's from Florida. And then she got connected now with Megan Henry. So I believed early on that I needed to either coach her or get somebody to coach her. And she's really developed into a superstar.
So basically your strategy was you didn't have to train her or coach her. You just hired leverage. You got a coach for her to help her develop.
Yeah, a lot of people get caught up in, hey, I'm not a coach, or I don't have systems and all that kind of stuff. If you're solo right now and you don't have systems, that's why you hire somebody who's organized to help you implement systems. I know it kind of sounds like duh, but some people get caught up in all that. Elizabeth created all these spreadsheets that we use. She does my books. She just keeps me organized. And I was open to, hey, all I care about is results. You're super organized. Show me like the best way to do this. And together, we kind of put together our systems, and she's really a leader now on the team.
So it sounds to me your behavior patterns complement one another. She's the detailed person, you're the big visionary, you're going out drumming up business.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of agents, I'm a DI, if you want to talk about the disc. Her S and her C are like 99.
Right.
Elizabeth was a research scientist before she joined me. I always say she's way smarter than me, and I don't know how I got her. I got lucky. But yeah, you want somebody.
You're something right, because she not only joined, she stayed there. It's 5 years. You put it, you've poured into her to bring her up.
Yeah, well, and that's something that's important too, Rich. I'm glad you point that out. We put together a growth plan for everybody on the team, and not only is it why you're doing what you're doing, what do you want to achieve in the future? What does your life look like in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? We have a 7-year org chart. That was something I learned from Lance Loken, casting out 5 to 7 years. And what does your organization look like? And then I actually have an opportunity map that I'm happy to email to you, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is important to note about that is some people think, well, why would somebody who's talented join me? You know, and I used to say that too. Well, if the opportunity is so big that there's no lid or limit on it, then you can attract big leaders. So that's what I did. I created an opportunity map. And one of my goals is to create 3 millionaires inside of my circle.
I love that. You know what? You're 100% right too, Pete, because if we're not dreaming or thinking big enough, we're never going to attract the talent that we desire that's going to help us grow to the level that we want, right? And what you've just demonstrated, Gary always comes into the bold coaches, and the growth should be forced, not optional. In other words, when you follow the models, just follow the models the way they're written, the growth, when you have the right people on your team, it's going to force you to grow. You won't have a choice. You're just going to outgrow whatever the model you're in, whatever level you're at. And that's what you did. And that's called forced growth, which is absolutely the way to do it. There are other people that want to just get creative, and then they start doing unnecessary growth and doing things, you know, the triangle upside down, and you know how that winds up. It's never pretty. It's always ugly. It winds up.
Yeah. So we have the MREA book, and I mean, I think the closest you can follow it if you're growing an organization to the T is the best. The brokerage model for a team does not work. It's not profitable. You know, I know a lot of teams that have 30 and 40 agents, and, you know, they're barely making it. They're not making a lot of money. The goal of the game is profit. And I just for a plug,
Say that one more time. What's that word that most people think is ugly that I think is beautiful? What's that word called again, Pete?
I said the goal of the game is profit.
Profit.
And I'm reading Profit First right now.
Yes.
And I've always been a profit and loss guy. I have an accountant who helps me, and we have a budget. Yet what I can tell you is I've made a lot of money and I've spent a lot of money. Until we really started focusing on the profit in our business, we were letting things slip through our fingers. So if you haven't read Profit First, well, first start out with a budget. Second, you know, have a P&L that's reviewed every month. And then look at the Profit First model. It's a really amazing thing.
So for those of you who haven't read the book, I can just summarize. You really just look at the title of the book and it summarizes the book. So instead of paying your expenses first, you take your profit first and then back your way into your expenses to make sure that you have enough revenue to cover everything. Because if you don't, you need to cut your revenue. You need to cut your expenses, rather, excuse me. So it's really important. Most of us are just spending money and we're not worried about the revenue. And then whatever is left at the end is what we call profit. Well, he's saying no. The author of the book is saying, tell me what your profit is. Take your profit first, pay your expenses afterwards, and you should have more than enough to cover that. If you're business planning, and again, Pete, you've done an organizational chart for 7 years out, and that's something that Lance Loken nailed. He did a 10-year one, maybe 6 years ago, when everybody thought he was crazy when he said he was going to do $1 billion in sales, and people said it couldn't be done 6, 7 years ago. And now, how close is he?
Yeah, he's getting real close, and I like Lance and Karina a lot. They're really smart business people. One thing I learned with the Profit First, which made a lot of sense, it made me go back and look. I actually turned a profit last year, thank God. However, what I realized is when I started looking at like percentages of my GCI versus what my actual profit was, I really needed to cut some things back. And this is a guy who has, so we have a profit and loss committee. My wife, my operations manager, Elizabeth, and I, we meet every 2 weeks. We look at the P&L and the budget and say, hey, is there anything off on the spending? And we did that all of last year, which caused us to go from no profit to profit, yet reading Profit First and keeping, they talk about the small plates. When you put the profit you want to make aside first, it really causes you to look at every dollar in and every dollar out and say, hey, do I really need to spend, you know, $2,500 on this mailer or whatever the expense might be? Even if you have it budgeted, going for the profit first really makes your business easier.
What were some of the expenses that you wind up either cutting out or cutting down, Pete?
You know, I think there was some unnecessary marketing expenses. And to be honest with you, we're really taking a hard look at our ISA. We weren't getting a 4-to-1 return on her salary. And some of it was script and role play. But I think a lot of it has been, you know, maybe it's not the right person for the seat on the bus. I mean, there's a lot of ways to generate business. I think if you're not getting 3 to 4 to 1 on what you're investing, you can probably spend your money somewhere else a little better, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. But here's the thing that I'm really proud is the fact that you know your numbers, you're playing red light, green light, so you know what you're investing, and now you have to figure out, is it worth it? Am I getting back a multiple of my investment? Whatever that salary is, if it's not bringing you back a multiplier of it, 2x, 3x, 5x, 8x, whatever it is that you're looking for, then we probably have the wrong person.
Yeah, and you know, business is changing too, guys. With Command, we can generate Facebook leads for $1. So my team, we've been really looking at, you know, we've done different things like Market Leader, the Z Company, like them or not, just some Realtor.com. The internet is a big funnel for us, and online digital presence will continue to be. However, when you start looking at $20, $30, $40, $50 a lead versus $1 a lead, I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. So a lot of what we did is we cut way back. You know, on Zillow, we cut way back. We were eliminating Market Leader, and we're putting more of our digital dollars into Facebook at $1 a lead. The other thing, too, on that is if you don't have a follow-up system, then it doesn't matter what you spend on the leads.
Right, because if you don't, especially with today's buyer, you know, the millennials, if you don't follow up within 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, that person has moved on. They're on to the next stage. So follow-up is probably more important today than lead gen itself.
Rich, you just said something about 10 minutes. So Anna Kruger, who's an ISA Maps coach, I don't know if you know Anna.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in part of her class, her webinar. She said that, you know, people who follow up in 5 minutes, within 5 minutes, have tremendous success. If you wait 10 minutes, so you would think 5 extra minutes isn't a big deal, your conversion ratio goes down 400%.
Did everybody hear that?
That was an aha for me.
Yeah.
From 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So you get an internet lead, you're like, oh, I'm busy or whatever, I'll get to it. You wait, oh, it was only 10 minutes. Well, your probability of securing that lead just went down 400%. So you have to figure out a system. How can I respond within 5 minutes? And what does that look like?
So if you're out with a customer, so do you have somebody that responds on staff that answers, an agent or a salaried person?
So our ISA currently is in charge of that. They respond to the leads. You know, our goal is, you know, 2 minutes to 5 minutes. And typically we can hit that. One aha though around that is if you call somebody within 5 minutes, and let's say you call, text, email, and then you never call them again, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get a response. We found that you need 6 touches in 10 days. And if you call 6 times within 10 days, you'll get a 90% pickup rate, meaning you'll get them on the phone 90% of the time.
So 6 to 10 days.
6 and 10 days. And that's something we were doing probably 4 or 5 touches in 10 days and kind of falling short. We just implemented 6 and 10 days. And that's a statistic from Anna as well, being an ISA for 14 years. Call people 6 times in 10 days and you get a 9% pickup rate.
Now, are you mixing in text messages with the phone calls on those 6 touches?
Yeah, well, it's 6 calls, and then we have Twilio, which does automated text messages, and then we're doing emails as well. So it's kind of like the Ben Kinney 10 days of pain. But the important thing is actually the phone call, 6 phone calls in 10 days. And I think if somebody called you 6 times in 10 days, what would you think about them as a salesperson? Aggressive, right?
They're determined. They're determined, right? That's a pattern of behavior, Pete. You're showing the person, if the person is truly looking to buy or sell, this is a person I want to be in business with.
Definitely.
Yeah. So tell me, how is real estate right now with all this coronavirus and everything in Cleveland, Ohio? What is the market like where you're at right now?
You know, um, I'm not going to say that there isn't a pandemic going on, because obviously there is, and it's hitting close to home there. However, I have just treated it like personally that I'm going to get up every day and go to work, keep my schedule, get on the phone. The calls have been way different. They've been forward calls. How's the family? How are you doing? Anything we can help with? And then if real estate comes up, it comes up. And what we noticed is people still need to buy and sell real estate, even though there's this virus is going on. So we're seeing people who need to transfer into the area, and they need to buy or sell. And the way we've approached it is, hey, we're handling this with all the precautions. We've sold 2 or 3 homes where the buyer didn't even see the house, all virtual. You know, with technology today and Google Hangouts and everything else, FaceTime, you can really give a buyer a great idea if they're not comfortable. But I would say we're down a little bit, but year over year, we're still up for the first quarter. So I think a lot of agents have stopped working, but us as a team, we've just said, hey, we're going to show up. We're going to do the same things. We get on a huddle every day at 11 o'clock. So the team standard is you do lead gen you do role play for 15, 20 minutes. Then you get on the phone for 2 hours. Well, it's 2.5 hours now, 9 to 11:30. And then we report out results for 15 minutes. So what I found is, being out of the office, we're actually meeting more digitally, and we're having more conversations. And I think it's caused us to be more effective. And I'm not saying it's not difficult, because there's certain people who don't want to sell right now, right? That's a reality. Yet there are people who say, hey, you know what? I need to sell. What does that look like right now? And I was on a call this morning, and I just told the agents, hey, just educate. Let your clients know what's going on in the marketplace. And the market right now, there isn't a lot of inventory. I don't know how Orlando is, but Cleveland's low, maybe 2 to 2.5 months. And what I know is going to happen June 1st, which is only 5 weeks away, there's going to be a flood in the marketplace. So if you can, why not put your property on the market when there's less competition, if that makes sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're seeing pretty much the same thing here in the Claremont office, one of my locations. We have about 2.5, 3 months. And Jim, what do you have down there in Spring Hill? Is it under 3 months there too?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, 2.5.
So I think we're seeing pretty much the same things here in Florida. Moreover, I will say that there's probably a tale of two cities. And what I mean by that, the geographics, the luxury market is probably taking a bigger hit than, and each area's got a different luxury market. In Claremont, anything over 500,000 is luxury. And in Spring Hill, I would say anything over 400 is luxury, or Citrus, anything over 400. So anything over that $500,000 mark there's a lot more inventory and a lot more days on market. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same by you. So what are you learning? What skill set are you and your teams focusing on right now to learn to adapt to the market that we're in? That you're probably going to take and find out they're much more efficient, that you're going to move forward when the market goes back to being normal, or whatever that looks like, if it ever does. What skill sets are you learning now that you're going to take into the future to serve your team?
I love that question, Rich. So I just told them I'm learning how to listen a lot better. I'm a high D and a driver, and I'm just like, hey, I got my agenda and my goals, and I'm just going to steamroll people. And something personal, I just fostered a 3-year-old little girl. So I have a new little child in my home, and I have an 8-year-old little girl and a wife, and I really so listening is one thing, and then being empathetic, realizing that people have feelings, and their feelings are valid. And I know this kind of sounds airy-fairy or whatever, yet it's real. When you're dealing with clients and people, they want to feel good. They want you to listen to them, and you need to ask really good questions. Rich, you're a coach, you know this. So in order to uncover how you can best help them, I'm really learning that the proof is in the questions. So ask a question and then just let them talk, validate what they have to say, and then ask another question and just gain their trust. That's really becoming evident during this time frame.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that, because every day I do a stand up with my leadership team, with all my MCAs and team leaders every morning for 30 minutes roughly. And guess what one of the topics was today on the phone? Questions.
Was it
Marianne is laughing right now because she's an MCA in one of our market centers. And great leaders ask great questions, right? And they're probing questions. And sometimes the questions, managers won't ask the questions that leaders do because they're afraid of the answer, or they may make an awkward situation. And I always tell people, great leaders will ask questions so people can't hide behind the questions that we're afraid to ask.
Yeah, that's good. You know what's a really great question, and everybody should write this down, no matter what the situation is, how are you feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because people are feeling different things, and they won't always tell you, hey, I'm scared, or I'm anxious, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. And it's good, if you're an MCA or you're an agent or a parent or whatever you are, how are you? I've started my one-to-ones lately with, hey, how are you feeling physically? And then how are you feeling emotionally? And then that kind of leads into energy, right? Energy is everything. That's a big thing. So that question has been helpful for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything that your agents are doing differently that you've adapted on their day-to-day agenda or habits or activities now that we are finding ourselves in a different market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that being disciplined is the key to success. I'm not going to go, duh, I've heard that a million times. But truthfully, if you're getting out of your house, which a lot of us are you able to close that door and still make those care calls? Some of us with kids, this is a real conversation, especially if you're a single mom with kids. How do you balance, I still need to lead gen. It may look different. Am I disciplined enough to stick to my schedule and say, hey, if I don't lead gen now, my June are not so profitable, and I may not be able to pay my bills in some cases. So we've been talking about discipline as the key to success, and generally we watch our numbers. However, are you setting yourself up? What does your environment look like? We talked about that this morning. I pretty rich have been blessed. I've been able to come to my office by myself because I need to. Others can work out of their house, and just really discerning, hey, what do I need in order to do what I need to do in order to succeed?
Sure. So one last question, and I'm going to open it up to everybody else. So have you filed for any of the stimulus packages, Pete, out there, whether it's the PPP or the SBA or any other alphabet soup stimulus packages available?
You know what? I actually have, and we were talking about this morning. So I have 3 full-time employees, and I have applied for and been approved for the payroll protection loan from the SBA. 2.5 times my payroll amount, and I can use it towards utilities. So I have a mega agent office. My rent's $2,500 a month, and then my payroll's $10,000 a month. So those are real numbers. And will I survive it? Of course I will. Yet it was available, and I decided that I'm going to take it. The only caveat is I have to use it for those purposes, and I will, and document it. So it's forgivable.
Yeah. So long as we follow the guidelines, and it's and the money, look, there's a reason why the money's there. And the truth is you're investing in people. So the fact that we're investing in people, Pete, now the government is investing in us.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I love that. I love that. So guys, what questions do you have for Pete?
So Pete, thank you for sharing. I've really enjoyed listening to you today. Given the shift, what is the 1 or 2 things that you would have started doing sooner to be in an even better position than you're in?
That's a great question. First of all, I love the Mo Anderson behind you. I don't know if that's a faulty screen or just a real picture, but I love Mo. She's the queen of culture. So the question was, what would I have done differently with this shift? I think I've been listening to Gary for the last, I had the opportunity to be a MAPS coach for about a year. And I've been hearing Gary and Diana say markets shifting, shift. So I really looked at my expenses about 2 years ago and remargined. And then I went through a period where I just didn't spend any money at all. It was like a real lean red light, green light. And I've always been able to show up at the same time, 8:30 every morning, and pick up the phone for 2 hours. Do I like to do it? To be honest with you, if I never talk to another buyer or something, I'd be fine. Yet I know that's what produces the results. So really looking at your budget and then looking at the activities. And if I could have done more sooner, it would have been more consistent lead gen and follow-up.
Great question, Marianne. Who else has a question?
So Rich and Pete, I have a question for you. You talked about your expenses, and I appreciate your transparency as to which expenses weren't providing you with the greatest return, et cetera. My question is, of the expenses that you currently have now, which one is providing you the greatest return?
Boy, that's a good question. And I would say it's salaries on people. So when you look at, whether it's a market center, if you're an OP of a market center or a TL, and you have a rockstar MCA, or you're the OP and you have a rockstar TL, or if you're a mega and you have an operations manager, that person, if they're talented, they're going to push you, and they're going to generate a 4 or 5x return through systems and people. So I think a talented, admin or, MCA or TL is probably my equities in my people, in my opinion.
So you look at that expense as an investment, not as an expense then, essentially.
That's the way that I look at it. Because if they're really good, then it allows me I can go on more appointments or deal with more recruits or train people, you know what I mean? So it's a leverage point for me.
Excellent, great, thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other questions for Pete? So Pete, why don't you tell everybody what areas you service in Ohio? So this way, whatever referrals they have, they now have a go-to person that they know that they can trust and handle their customer with kid gloves, and the way you do business is absolutely astounding. So why don't you tell everybody what areas you do handle?
Yeah, great. So first of all, I know some people are concerned, hey, this guy has a team, and is he going to meet with the clients? If we ever get a referral in Northeastern Ohio, whether it's a buyer or seller, I always with the client. Hand them off to my lead buyer's agent if it's a buyer. Yet I always do the initial consultation, and then I let them know, here's how it works. It's kind of like if you have a showing assistant and you're a buyer's agent. We work well together. Art's going to show you all the properties. I'm available at any time. So I'm not absent from the process. We have standards. But to answer your question, Rich, I am located in Rocky River, Ohio, about 20 minutes from downtown Cleveland. We have offices in Pepper Pike, Ohio, and Rocky River, Ohio. So anywhere within about 40 of downtown Cleveland in the Northeastern Ohio area. And then if you guys had a referral that was a little bit outside of there, you could shoot me an email and I'll connect you to probably be Jose Medina if it's down in Akron, Canton. But I know all the top agents in the area. And one thing I can tell you is I'm not going to take a referral if I can't service the area, if I'm not the best person for them.
No, I appreciate it. But that's what a true professional does, and that's what you always demonstrate, Pete, so I really appreciate it. If there's any other questions, guys, now's the time to ask. I mean, I've told Pete between 30 and 40 minutes, and it's 36 minutes. I'm always a man of my word. I like to stay on schedule. Does anybody have a last thought they'd like to ask or a question from Pete? If that's it, guys, I'm going to say, listen, Pete, thank you from the bottom of my heart. If there's anything I could do for you, you know how to reach me. I'll always be there for you. And with that being said, I look forward tomorrow. We got Ricky Kane. Ricky Kane is tomorrow's guest. I'll see everybody at 12 tomorrow.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it.
Take care, Pete.